Hey everybody, I am John Merritt from borntoproduce.com, and in this lesson we are going to look at a replacement for Retrologue 2, which you don't get in Cubase Elements, AI or LE. So this is Retrologue here. It's a subtractive synthesizer and analog modeled, which means that it gives a really sort of nice warm sound. So basically what I've done is I've gone and found a free alternative to Retrologue. Now it's not quite as good. There's not so many options with the oscillators. There's no art page, there's no effects page. Now the main thing with this particular synth, the UHE Tyrell N6, which, yes, if you're familiar with it, is a nod to the Blade Runner film. And although being free, it is actually a really nice sounding synth. It is also analog modeled and has basically all of the main features that you need to get into synthesis or to learn about synthesis. And what I'm going to show you today is just how to sort of basically make your own sounds in it, and also just to sort of navigate around the synth. So if you're completely new to synthesis, and perhaps you come from one of our other tutorial videos where we use Retrologue and you're looking for a replacement for that because you don't have it in your version of Cubase, then this is a really good choice. Now there are like literally hundreds, even thousands of free synthesizers that have been made by people, so there are plenty to choose from, but this is definitely one of the better, nicer sounding ones that I've found as a replacement for Retrologue. So in order to get hold of it, just type Tyrell N6 into Google or whatever search engine you're using. You can go straight to the UHE page, but that will just link to this page, which is the Amazonia.d web page. And then just go down here and you can download the relevant version for your operating system. It's a very simple install, so I won't even go into that. And once you've got it and restarted Cubase, you'll be able to load it up. So again, this is going to be a very basic tutorial. We're just going to look at a couple of the features and then just make a couple of very sort of easy sounds to make. So like a pad sound, a lead sound, and a bass sound. And this is the sort of track that I'm going to be using. I just made a real simple melody. So just very simple. It's all been side chained and stuff, so it's relatively okay. So I'm just going to reset that by reloading the synth. This is the stock preset. And so with any synthesizer, the sound always starts with the oscillator. And in the oscillator section, you have basically two oscillators, two main oscillators. First one, shape 1, and then shape 2. So I'll just sort of give you an example of what that's like. With those, you also have the tuning of them, so you can fine tune them if you like. Now, as I say, we're going to keep things really simple and just go over the super basics, so we're not going to go through the mod sections of this. So over here next to this, we've got the mixer for the different oscillators. So like I said, you got two main oscillators. That's controlled by these two shapes here. And then we've got the volumes for either. Of course, you can mix them together. Then we have a sub oscillator as well, which you can just mix in. So if I turn down the other two, and this sub oscillator is always going to be -12 or an octave down from what you've got here from the transpose. And we can mix all our oscillators together. Then we've got a noise oscillator as well, which can just add a bit of sort of shine or sparkle or air to a particular sound. So it sounds a bit intense, so what we're going to need to do is go on to the next section where we've got the filter section. Now at the moment it's set to low pass stroke high pass, which basically means when we've got this controller right the way down, it's in low pass mode. So only the low frequencies will travel through when you bring the filter down, or you can have it in high pass mode. So the further up, the less low frequencies you're going to get. We can have it somewhere in the middle. For a sort of different effect. Now, most of the time, you're probably going to want it just in low pass, so keep this one down. Of course, we've got resonance as well. Very nice little effects to be able to use. And then again, we can sort of use the mod section, that's the matrix section, to actually sort of oscillate these. You could use an LFO, for example. Again, we're not going to get into that. I'm just going to cover this in a very, very basic way. So the two other main things that you're going to want to look at in the synthesizer to start off with is the sort of dynamic. So that's the shape of the sound that's coming out of the synthesizer. So envelope 1 is an envelope that controls the amplitude of the signal. So for example, let's bring down the sustain and just have a little bit of decay. So we can make a very plucky sound. Now the sustain comes in after the decay. So if you have a quick decay, it'll sort of go down in volume till the sustain level, and then it will stay on until the end of the note is reached in the MIDI segment. That's fine, and the attack, of course, will just give a sort of gentle fade in. Envelope 2 is rigged to control the filter, but you need to actually send some of the filter through to this envelope before it'll actually have any effect. So again, the attack is obviously going to be like a gentle lead in. That's with it fully open. So you can get that sort of Reese type sound. And again, the controls are pretty much the same for the decay and sustain. So you can make a nice plucky sort of sound. And one thing I didn't talk about was the release, which just makes the sound basically longer. So the release time happens when the MIDI note has reached its end, and then the sound will fade out depending on how long the release is. If you have no release, it'll end as soon as it gets to the end of the MIDI note. If you have a long release, it'll carry on after the MIDI note is finished. Now, before we actually make a sound or continue sort of playing around with this sound, I do want to point out that obviously for complete newbies, probably the easiest thing to do is literally just go to the presets menu, and then you've got all of these different sort of banks of sounds which you can use all by different people, and there's absolutely tons, hundreds of different presets, and some of them really good. So don't be afraid just to start experimenting, finding new sounds, because obviously once you've found a really cool sound, then you can start playing around with the cutoff filter. You can start manipulating some of the controls and sort of customizing it a bit more, so it's not just a standard preset. And believe me, there is literally nothing wrong with starting with a preset. I've been making music over 20 years now, and I still sometimes start with a preset and just tweak it and go from there. It's just a nice, easy, inspirational sort of way of starting. But anyway, let's carry on with this particular sound. So like I say, I'm making a sort of lead type pluck sound. Now it's already sounding pretty nice. Just want to open that filter a bit more. And what I want to do is sort of add a bit of detune to this. So we've got a detune knob up here, but at the moment it's actually just detuning the oscillator section as a whole. It's not detuning oscillator 1 and 2 against each other, which is actually what you want to create that sort of nice full trancey sound. So what we need to do is go to voices and change that to 2. And then we can affect the detune, and as you can hear, it starts to sound a bit different. Now don't go too far, because you'll start getting this sound, which obviously is horrible, and it's nice, but I just want to add a bit of sub in. Gives it a bit more of a full sound. And you can brighten it up a bit with the noise, although of course we've got the cutoff, filter cutoff control as well. This one is a ring modulator, a ring oscillator, which basically modulates the actual oscillators themselves. So you can use this to just change the sound a bit. Same with the feedback. So probably the sub is a bit much. I'm going to add a separate sub anyway, so I'm just going to take that oscillator out. And there we go, we got a basic lead sound, which is pretty nice on its own. So I just made the arrangement of this particular example just a little bit longer. So we got this to start off with. So let's just record in a quick bit of automation. So let's find a starting point for our cutoff filter. Somewhere about there, and a bit of resonance let's have. And then let's just record it in our curve. And the resonance, we just need to sort of have that fading out just as we go along. So let's just do that as well. There we go, nice little intro to our example idea. All right, so we got that sorted. Remember to turn right off after you're done. And let's just have a look at making a bass sound for this. So what I've done with the MIDI is I've just literally taken the same sort of chord structure that we had before, and I've just used the lower notes of each chord just to make a bass sort of line. So let's just reset all of those settings and start from scratch. So the first thing I want to do with my bass sound is just lower the pitch. I'm going to go down from -12 to -24. And I'm going to turn off oscillator 2 because it's a bit grimy. I don't want that, so just turn down the volume of oscillator 2 and have oscillator 1. Let's just find the right waveform. So more like a sine wave is what we want, rather than a triangle or a saw or anything. Could go square, but it's a bit harsh for this song. So notice on this sound, you got that kind of weird clicking sound at the beginning. That's no good, you don't want that. So the way to get rid of that is just to add a bit of attack to the initial part of the sound. So we're going to come down here. Remember, envelope 1 is for our amplitude. So we want to just raise the attack up slightly. That's just about right. It's just about got rid of that click. It's not noticeable anymore, so that's fine. Now let's shape it a bit. So we want to have a bit of a sort of slight pluckiness to this bass sound. So I'm going to bring down the sustain and just have a bit of decay. And what I'm going to do is bring the cutoff down and then mix in a bit of oscillator 2. We'll see if we can get this to sort of sound okay. See, with the cutoff fully open, it just sounds gnarly. So we're just bringing that down and adding a bit of sort of texture by adding some of oscillator 2 back in. And then just changing the shape of it a bit by adding some feedback as well. Again, I'm just playing around really, just sort of experimenting with the two, well, with the balance of the oscillators, just to get a nice sort of round, bassy type sound. And let's just mix that back in with the rest of the track as well. So let's have that playing. So somewhere like that's fine. It's not exactly groundbreakingly amazing, but it's not bad for a bass line. It's prominent enough, and then we can just mix our lead back in. And what we will want to do is just remove a bit of the low frequencies from that lead sound from this. So you can see we've got a bit of lows going on down there. We don't want that, so we'll change our filter to 48 dB cutoff and just bring this in a bit just to take out any of the sub frequencies so it's not interfering with our new bass line. And that's fine, it's not changing the sound in any negative way. and it's not bad. So one last little thing that I want to do and just show you how to make a sort of pad sound. So I've got a pad here. Let's just have this playing on the sort of intro to the song, although we'll mute our main lead. So we want to have something that sounds like that. So let's just reset it. So really the first thing you want to do with the pad is you want to bring up the attack a bit of the actual amplitude and of course of the filter as well. This is really important to getting that nice sort of gentle pad sound in the background. So I'm going to bring up the attack. Now remember at the moment the filter envelope isn't actually doing anything because we need to bring down the cutoff. And we also need to send the sort of filter to the envelope. So we need to turn up the mod 1 a bit. And there you can hear it starting to affect it. So let's just turn up the release a bit as well and just have a little bit of attack from the volume envelope. And we're already starting to get that sort of sound, so we want to definitely detune this a bit. So again, we're going to change that to 2 voices, add a bit of detune. Just really thickens up the sound a bit. And we're going to add just a little bit of air to this pad by adding a bit of noise. Definitely not too much. Somewhere about there is actually quite nice. Now, like I say, UHE doesn't have any effects, but well, apart from one actually, which is the chorus. So let's have a quick look at that. So to activate the chorus, you just hit that button there, and really chorus just gives whatever you're playing just a little bit of movement, really. So it's very nice on pads particularly. So when we start it off, it's going to be quite extreme until we sort of mess with these settings a bit. And generally speaking, I mean, I prefer to have, especially on pads, have a sort of slower rate. So it's more like a slowly evolving sort of chorus sound. And then all you got to do is use the wet knob to, oh my god, sorry. All you got to do is use the wet dial to then sort of dial in how much chorus you actually want. Obviously with like 0 down here, it's not going to have any effect at all. And you can just mix it in to taste. Somewhere about there is pretty nice. Okay, so one absolutely last thing I promise, right? So in Retrologue, you have the art page and you have effects, which I will just show you how to sort of replicate in Cubase, because in some of our tutorials, we might use Retrologue and then we actually use the arpeggiator or step sequencer that's inside of it. So I've gone over to my pluck sound and I've copied over the actual pad MIDI, so just solid long notes. And we're going to go to MIDI inserts down here. And you want to load up our pachi SX on the MIDI inserts. And then straight away, you'll get sort of like a basic arpeggiator. Now, if you don't want this to disappear when you click off it, just right click somewhere in the window and just click always on top. And then I can still go into my project window without that closing. Of course, you've got a few different options with this. You can change the step size to 1/8. Just half speed. And obviously you've got different sort of settings that you can use here, even different presets. Now you can have it jumping about octaves and all sorts if you change it to up. So you can change just about every part of the up. Okay, so it's just a neat little one that you can add in. Now, it sounds a little bit weird and dry on its own, and because of course we can't add effects to the actual synth itself, or within the synth, of course, so you can just come to the channel settings and add effects in the normal way. There we go, not bad. Okay, so I know that went on a bit, but I hope that was helpful for you guys who need a replacement for Retrologue. That's just a real basic overview of sort of general synthesis. Like I say, we didn't even get into the matrix and LFOs and stuff like that, as this video would just go on way too long. But I hope that was helpful for you. Thank you very much for watching, guys and girls. I'll see you in the next one.